This video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Ratchet, it's almost pathetic how easily Gleeman's goons infiltrated your starship. If you used a VPN, you could have probably convinced them that you were in Germany or something, I don't know. But the galaxy is not the only thing out there filled with spooky things. Your very internet is also swarming with surveillance, web limitation, and data mining, happening all the time without you even knowing it. But with Surfshark VPN, you do have an easy one-for-all solution, and across many different products as well. Doesn't matter if you're using Windows, Android, or Apple, with the click of a button, Surfshark turns you into an anonymous and hard-to-track user, giving you more freedom on the internet, keeping you away from prying eyes, and preventing companies from doing things like geo-blocking, where video and streaming services limit your library simply because of where you live. But Surfshark makes all of that a non-issue. Start up the service, choose your location, refresh the page, and there you go. Your favorite show that you couldn't watch before, lickety-split, though it looks like the only thing Deadzone offers is child torture. And those that use the link in the description below and enter the special code Johnny will not only get 83% off their initial order, but the next 3 months are also completely free. As always, thanks to Surfshark VPN for the sponsor. Thank you for supporting my channel. Now let's continue on with the show. Okay, well, my apologies for the bit of wait on this one. I had to shift priorities for a second there. One, due to health reasons. I'm doing fine, for the record. It's just that as you're getting older, there are things you gotta keep in check with, and health comes first, so thank you for waiting for me on that one. Another was because at the time of making this video, we just wrapped up our summer annual charity event for the guys over at the charity room. It was Charity versus Room this year, raising money for the Diabetes Research Institute. And as always, you guys went above and beyond looking out for folks that really need it. And from the bottom of my heart, every single year I say this, but every single time I mean it, thank you. And no, I didn't forget the headword for this video. I'm going all natural for today because my old hats are getting dusty and dirty. I didn't bother washing them in time for this video, so I'm just gonna rock the bald look. Although, as long as I've been doing this videos, like 10 years at this point for Johnny Verse specifically, I'm still looking for a replacement of that hat I used to wear. It was back in 2012, way back in the beginning of Johnny Verse's stuff, where you got the little notches and the stitching on the side. I loved that hat, and I could never find another one like it after that old hat got dirty and musty and I had to throw it away. So if anybody knows where I can get that exact make and model of that hat for my large ass head, for the record, I think I work a 2X for fitted caps, please hit me up on my Twitter at Somecallmejohnny or in the comment section below. Please, I would love to get another hat like that. I really love that hat. But let's get back to business. We are now at the last of the PlayStation 2 Ratchet & Clank games. Though Ratchet & Clank isn't in the name, it's just Ratchet. Ratchet Deadlocked. And the cover is giving me some real Bomberman Act Zero vibes, which I guess it's not that out there looking back, given that Ratchet grimacing for the cover is nothing new. But Deadlocked's cover elicits an edge that I shouldn't be terribly surprised seeing if that was the intention going forward. Like, I never played the Jak and Daxter games growing up, but even I know that series became more serious as it continued. And knowing that Insomniac and Naughty Dog were buddies, maybe Insomniac games wanted to try something similar, but not to a T. According to the devs, Ratchet Deadlocked started as a Ratchet & Clank racing game featuring vehicular combat like the Twisted Metal series. But when Insomniac caught wind of Naughty Dog developing Jak X, a vehicular combat game with the Jak series, Insomniac probably went, "Fuck!" and decided to make the fourth game a standard RC title with a darker tone and premise inspired by Bungie's Halo series at the time. Well, I do love me some Halo, but I don't think the Halo vibes really go any farther than the stronger emphasis on gunfights and Ratchet's new Spartan-esque combat armor, which I want to say now, not a real fan of it. Though it is in service to the game's darker tone, I don't like the lower poly count on Ratchet's body compared to other combat armor he's worn in the past. I see Ratchet's cartoonish head stick out of this thing, and it just looks wrong, but not in a funny haha sense. It's more oil and water clashing. His in-game animations also look more stiff and rigid, not having the same squash and stretch as before. Apparently the emphasis on lower poly models was to make the game's multiplayer less strenuous on the system. And you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, like an Up Your Arsenal, Ratchet Deadlock also had online multiplayer, which no longer works of course, but it still supports local split-screen co-op for the main campaign. You can play all story mode with a buddy if you want, which I didn't do for this video, going solo as always of course, but I appreciate the option given. Just make sure your TV is large enough to get a good idea of where you're going and doing. This split screen is Resident Evil 5 crunchy. But to get into why the game is just called Ratchet Deadlocked, we gotta go into the plot. For whatever that means here, because it's a pretty straightforward deal. So we join our heroes aboard the Starship Phoenix when they're notified by Captain Sasha that heroes across the galaxy have been mysteriously disappearing, or worse, killed off. But just soon after she says that shit, robotic troops invade the starship and manage to capture Ratchet, Clank, and Big Al, your scientific companion from the first and third game. Ratchet and friends find themselves in the Shadow Sector where laws don't matter, and they got explosive collars attached to their necks that'll detonate if they don't obey the one responsible for this whole mess, Gleeman Vox of the Vox Network, a greedy business shark whose face reminds me a little too much of Robert De Niro's shark character from Shark Tale. Thanks for that, Deadlocked. Gleeman takes pleasure in forcibly entering his victims into Deadzone, a fiendish game show where combatants battle to the death to survive, entertain the masses, and make Gleeman a boatload of money. But lately, he's been having trouble with that last part, as his prized champion, Ace Hardlight, doesn't seem to be drawing the numbers as much as he used to, no matter how many combatants and heroes he kills, so Gleeman, seeing opportunity in Ratchet, puts the dude through the ringer, throwing challenge after challenge after challenge at the determined Lombax, all while having his two Deadzone announcers run a slander campaign against Ratchet, constantly, and I mean constantly, sullying his name and making fun of the guy.
After making his fortune selling cigarettes to children, Ratchet went on to pilot a tanker ship for Zexon.
A week later, Ratchet got drunk and crashed his tanker into the ocean world of Equados. Who can forget these graphic images of baby seals smothered in radioactive waste?
Ah!
Little Coco never had a chance.
How could you? What did little Coco ever do to you? What?
But outside of that setup, this story is nothing more than Ratchet continuing to win Deadzone games, conquering tougher challenges and combatants thrown at him, even having him take on Ace Hardlight man-to-man, all while Clank and Big Al find a means to remove the explosive collars and stop Gleeman Vox once and for all and escape the Shadow Sector. Which all happens in due time. That's all she wrote, nothing much to it. It's still funny, it's got good moments, and yeah, it does provoke a darker tone when you consider the circumstances Ratchet and Clank find themselves in. But I'm gonna say that this tone is not that much darker, given the kind of themes and gags the original Ratchet and Clank and Going Commando especially already delivered. Although, I don't know, I kind of felt this plot didn't have many punchlines outside of Deadzone and the Shadow Sector being awful. It's like Deadlock only had one joke to tell, one thing to mock, as if the writing was on autopilot. I really could have done without the two announcers personally, Dallas and Juanita. I know they're just as much victims as Ratchet forced to run a slander campaign because of Gleeman, but that's not revealed until the end of the game, and maybe if that was shown earlier I'd be more sympathetic to them. I wouldn't have minded so much, but no, for the whole adventure it's just the same repeated commentary and quips on how Ratchet sucks or how Dallas pronounces Juanita's name weird.
I'll bet he doesn't have any trouble getting a close shave, Juanita. You get it?
Shut up, Dallas. You're not that funny.
Alright. In small doses, they would have been fine, but since they follow you through the whole game, they wore thin fast for me. I did appreciate the return of the comically dark advertisements, an element I missed in Up Your Arsenal. In a place like the Shadow Sector, yeah, let Reactor fucking murder a kid to sell a card game. I feel these should have been the sole means of establishing how much of a shit show the Shadow Sector was, but again, the non-stop announcer commentary just dulled my senses in a game that's already sort of dulling my senses in other ways. More on that in a bit. It's a harmless plot, but out of all the games developed during this time, and knowing that development for all of them was strenuous, I think you can tell Deadlock is the most obvious example, a likely result of the game originally planned to be one thing, and then having it to become something else during development. Firstly, outside of maybe Ace Hardlight and Big Al if you consider getting robotic implants character development, there are no real character arcs in this game. Gleeman Vox and his cronies are purely one-dimensional. They service the story and fulfill their roles, but they're not as memorable as Captain Quark, Chairman Drek, and especially Dr. Nefarious. I was so confused at the end when we saved the day and were suddenly thanked by all the heroes that we apparently rescued from captivity, and I'm like, wait, who are these guys? I feel these guys should have been more of a factor in this game, maybe have them team up and unite their powers with Ratchet to break out the Shadow Sector together. Deadlocked is also the shortest game in the series by far. It only took me about half the time to finish this than my time spent on Up Your Arsenal and Going Commando. This game is also somehow more straightforward than Up Your Arsenal, believe it or not, which already removed elements from previous games, so in a way Deadlocked is like a diet Up Your Arsenal. There's no alternate pathways in this game at all, no extra bolts to collect outside of basic currency. Those elusive skill points that required a ton of work just to get one in the previous games are now given to you like candy here, letting you purchase extra skins and the like to add some color to your next combat mission. Whoa, look at these, look at all these other costumes you can unlock. I think these are supposed to be the other heroes that were in captivity, but shit, that just makes me think they should have been more significant in the story even more. Instead, they're glorified multiplayer skins. Previous gimmicks that required minigames to bypass are also completely nixed. You're given these two robotic companions in the beginning to support you in combat, but they're also how you bypass certain barriers and obstacles. All you gotta do is hit a button and then give them the order. Very similar to how you controlled Clank's minions in other games now that I think about it. You know what? That was probably the intention considering how Clank is such a non-entity here outside of mission control. Him being out of the picture also means you don't have access to some extra mobility that Clank offered before, so the rocket jump is gone as is the basic hover, which isn't the end of the world given the lack of platforming already, but it was nice to have anyway. Sometimes I don't like using the charge boots for fast travel because of how unruly it can be. I thought the rocket boost was better for controlled bursts. If you blow your eyes, occasionally you might find a smidge of platforming here and there, but Deadlocked is primarily combat focused. Like, this game is all about grabbing your weapons and blowing shit up using the tried and true formula that's been a winner since the first game, and to its credit, it has seen some fine tuning. They added a mini-map, showing you your next objective in real time without having to pause the game, which I want to stress I didn't mind doing, but I appreciate them streamlining that bit anyway. They also finally made tools like the swing shot context sensitive. You press a button while you're close to the point and bada boom, no need to needlessly switch weapons. And I ended up using the quick switch a lot in this game as I found a lot of weapons to be quite handy for different combat scenarios. Weapons and such level up as before to become more powerful, but Deadlock puts a lot of emphasis on mods as well that you can unlock as guns get more experience. Things like better accuracy, more ammunition, more impact, and you have these other mods that add a secondary effect to your ammo, like explosive rounds or napalm to leave a lingering magma pile on the ground upon contact. That was good for this Arnold Schwarzenegger wannabe. I tinkered with these for a bit, trying to see what weapon benefited the most with what mod, but I quickly found that across the board, the freeze mod was clearly the best of the bunch. You stop things in their place, meaning they can't follow up with attacks, making them easy picking. By endgame, using the freeze mod, the only two weapons I really needed was the Arbiter, the rocket launcher with homing capabilities, and the fusion rifle, as it was not only immensely powerful to the point of being unfair, let's be real, especially with the freeze mod, but I was also able to wield it as a regular ass gun without really needing to use its scope function. Larger enemies and their numerous dropships and especially boss fights stood no chance in hell. But don't sleep on the shock mod either. It gives your ammo a lingering shock like the plasma coil from before, one of my favorite weapons from those games. It's handy. There was one mission where you had to stop a bunch of these small enemies from entering the base, and the shock mod made it a total cakewalk. It is the best for those kind of threats. The experimental lock strafe controls introduced in Up Your Arsenal are now the default controls in this game, and I certainly didn't mind that. I ended up loving that control style last time, so this is fine for me, though you can switch back to more traditional controls if that isn't your preference. I thought for the longest time this game removed the backflip and strafe jump because I for the life of me couldn't figure out how to do it. It was so simple in the last game, you just jump while holding a specific direction, but in Deadlock, you now have to press the jump button twice to do it. And I know that doesn't sound like a big deal at all, but I don't understand the need for the extra input when it worked just as fine as before. So I ended up playing the whole game without these techniques, if you can believe it. Next time I guess I'll consult the instruction manual. But if it's not the standard run and gun, you can drive through a few hoops with this hover bike that are over before you know it, and thank God because I hated how floaty this hover bike was here. You can also blow things to hell and back with this Landstalker. Slow as shit, but packs some mean salvo of missiles and other weaponry, so does its job well enough. You also got this Puma, a vehicle I think you only use twice, but I thought it was fine. You drive and shoot things. It worked in Halo, works here as well. As I said with Up Your Arsenal, despite cutting so much from the standard formula, Deadlock benefits from a consistent, streamlined design. This game is about 5 to 6 hours of heading to the next battle arena, shooting everything in your path, and then choosing the next mission. You don't gotta worry about backtracking or needing enough currency to buy your way to the next objective. You'll be swimming in money in just an hour with how much you earn in Deadlock, and that's not counting the extra missions you can do for some fast cash. Deadlocked is not a great follow-up to Going Commando and Up Your Arsenal, but standalone, in a bubble, it works. And I did have fun playing this, but my God, it is so mindless. I was initially surprised by the game's short length, but at the same time I thought, you know what, I'm kind of glad because I was starting to go a little brain dead. And I'm willing to bet that's also because I played 3 other games before this and burnout is a thing, but after a bit I realized, man, I'm just playing a more elaborate Smash TV with none of the gore. The weapons are fun, as they always are. Outside of the hover bike, I think the other vehicles control just fine. The environments are not the best and a little samey, but they complement the game's darker tones just fine, so I think they work all things considered. Don't ask me about the soundtrack. I don't remember any of it. That's been a thing with me for the past couple of games if you couldn't tell already. Had a few of you tell me, Johnny, you didn't talk about the music. And yeah, I know. And it's because I didn't really find anything memorable in the years at first listen, outside of the first game's soundtrack, which I still think is the best one so far. The other game's soundtracks place more emphasis on the high-octane circumstances given life to the here and now, which is fine, but I felt this came with the consequence of a lot of tracks sounding like one another, homogenous. The first game's soundtrack, I felt, did a better job in giving every planet a personality. No track felt overproduced or overbearing, reserved when it needed to be, action-packed when it needed to be. So there you go.
Well, you've obviously made some sort of idiotic mistake. Report to B level for disintegration.
Yes.
sir.
Deadlocked is strangely not part of the HD Ratchet collection. It's sold separately on the PlayStation 3, but if you can, I would still recommend playing the original PlayStation 2 release as I did for this video, if it's within reasonability, since I hear the HD version is not the best port. I also want to take a sec to elaborate on something. Some of you were a little confused by my mention of the rampant slowdown I experienced in Up Your Arsenal, which according to you Ratchet & Clank fans, shouldn't have really been as widespread if I was really playing the original release. See, the thing is, I was, but not entirely how you might think. For these past few videos, I've actually been playing these games off of my PlayStation 2 HDD, or the hard drive, courtesy of my friend Experiment if you remember him from my Metroid videos. This has been a great means of getting my whole library into one neat package, but sometimes you do need to tinker with some settings in the program that runs the games to make sure they're running properly, and without doing that in, say, Up Your Arsenal's case, you can get more slowdown than usual, which I want to stress again, I didn't mind that. In fact, I thought it added to the appeal of the combat's ebb and flow. But I realized that can give people the wrong idea on how Up Your Arsenal can run, and for that I do apologize. I made sure to check settings properly this time for Deadlocked, and sure enough I didn't run into nearly as much slowdown as before, and I'm willing to bet that Up Your Arsenal runs just as smooth with proper settings enabled. But considering you guys had to wait for this video, I think I will find some time to squeeze in the PSP games for this marathon specifically, to which I think there's only 2 games, so not much to cover. So we got a double whammy for the end of this Ratchet & Clank marathon. So I'll be looking at Ratchet & Clank Size Matters and Secret Agent Clank. I also got some more Donkey Kong videos headed your way for those looking forward to the rest of the Donkey Kong marathon. That should be quite an adventure, especially as we get to the tail end of that one. But as always, thank you all for watching. Stay safe out there. Look out for one another. Have yourselves a fantastic night. And take care. There's a little banner I got here. Saves me a lot of effort. The things I have to do to stay afloat in this business.